Let's get to the GOP debate. I've been wanting to talk about this. This was, I think, the most entertaining debate I had ever watched. I know I'm a day late and a dollar short on this one, but I just have to go over this with you guys because there's just some things about this that really stood out. First of all, I want to point out when watching this debate, I noticed that there's the 8 candidates that qualified. Trump, of course, qualified, but then Trump decided not to do the debate, and he instead went on Tucker Carlson's show. And because Trump was not there, then Governor from Arkansas, Asa Hutchinson, was able to actually nab a slot in this debate. What I found really interesting about this is take a look actually at the Democratic primary in 2020. Take a look at all of these. The Democratic Party had 28 candidates in the 2020 primary, 28 different candidates. When looking at those 28 candidates, 4 of them were governors of states. The rest were not. Most of them were senators or congresspeople. But you look at the Republican GOP debate on the stage out of 8, all of them were governors of states except for 2. Vivek Ramaswamy and Tim Scott are the only 2 who were not governors of a state. And of course, Donald Trump, who was not a governor. That to me, I thought stood out. Just it's just kind of showing who the Republican Party, who they seem to sort of support or elevate or give the idea of, hey, you could potentially run for, be president of the United States, so you should run. To me, a governor is the most qualified person to then become president of the United States. They've been basically president of a state and they have done the job. And so, in my opinion, a governor is the best, most qualified to then go on and become the president of the country. Senators and congresspeople, I mean, especially reps from the House, what do? They're the most useless body of government. And for any of them to think that they could just go and then run for president and it's mind blowing to me when they're coming from literally the most defunct, useless branch of government. They do nothing but fundraise, especially members of Congress. Senators at least get 6-year terms, but members of Congress are 2 years, every 2 years. So the only thing they think about is getting money from their donors. That's the only thing they do, and trending on social media. That's the only thing they care about. So it's interesting that the Democratic Party, the population seems to like people like that. And they're like, hey, you could be president. You should be president next. That is, I think, really fascinating. So I just wanted to point that out. But let's get on to the actual debate itself. I want to start off with this clip. We're going to play some clips tonight. We're going to kind of go through them. Here's Vivek Ramaswamy. He was definitely the one they targeted all night long. What was interesting about the debate is the way they placed them on the stage was based on their polling numbers. Ron DeSantis was polling the highest, so he was dead in the middle, alongside Vivek Ramaswamy, who was outpolling all of the other candidates. So he then became the target. He's the outsider. What this debate showed was that the old guard GOP wants nothing more but to claw itself back into power. That is what they showcased all night long. And Vivek Ramaswamy actually pointed that out quite a bit. And really, it was just, I thought, the most entertaining debate. So let's go ahead and start off. They were definitely, their sights were on Vivek. They're trying to take him down. They're like, get this guy out of here. He's not establishment enough. He's not old guard. He's just a newbie. He's a baby. He shouldn't be here. This is their thinking. This is how politicians think in this country. But here he is. This is one of the things he said that really stood out, that he is not bought and paid for. And he also called climate change a hoax. Here it is.
Let us be honest as Republicans. I'm the only person on the stage who isn't bought and paid for, so I can say this. The climate change agenda is a hoax. The climate change agenda is a hoax. And we have to declare independence for it. And the reality is, the anti-carbon agenda is the wet blanket on our economy. And so the reality is, more people are dying of bad climate change policies than they are of actual climate change.
He's actually at this point potentially not wrong on that. There are a lot of people who are suffering because of climate policies. I thought it was really interesting, the first thing, him saying, I'm the only candidate here who isn't bought and paid for. And whoa. That's all these governors who clearly have had to finance their campaigns somehow, probably through donors, all of them most likely. And Tim Scott, also the senator, same thing there. So he's right on that. When it comes to climate change, I definitely think that the narrative around climate change has been abused and just we've had guests on the show who say, yeah, sure, it's real, but it also doesn't really matter. I mean, we're talking minor changes in the climate that are going to have an effect, of course, but it's not a major effect that anybody should be screaming about. And certainly not governments utilizing that for their own benefit by using those policies to harm developing countries that are rising. It's just a way to stomp the little guy, to stomp on the little guy and to keep him down. And a lot of people are seeing that. A lot of people are realizing that. And Vivek him pointing that out and the others saying, no, we don't agree. It was just very interesting. It shows kind of in the beginning a little bit how out of touch a lot of these politicians are, because so many, especially in the Republican base, do believe that climate change is a hoax. The vast majority, I would say, of the GOP base, the voting base, believes that. They think this is not a big deal. It's a bit of a hoax. And yet the others were definitely against Vivek Ramaswamy on that. So I thought that was really interesting. Really, I thought this whole debate showcased how out of touch all of these GOP old guard guys are. Here's Chris Christie. He's really upset with Vivek Ramaswamy, and he calls him Chat GPT and says, I've just had enough of this young kid coming up here, getting those high polling numbers. Here's Chris Christie.
I've had enough already tonight of a guy who sounds like Chat GPT standing up here. And the last person in one of these debates, Brett, who stood in the middle of the stage and said, what's a skinny guy with an odd last name doing up here, was Barack Obama, and I'm afraid we're dealing with the same type of amateur standing on stage tonight.
Come over and give me a hug. Give me a hug just like you did to Obama.
The same type of amateur.
And you'll help elect me just like you did to Obama, too. Give me that
the
bear
same
hug,
type of amateur.
Hold on.
Okay, first of all, Chris Christie's comment was, and I don't say this very often, but it did kind of seem a little racist, didn't it? I mean, he's like, a guy here with a weird last name, like only a white person with the name like John Smith or Chris Krispy Kreme or whatever, they're the only ones who can run for president. That, oh, well, the last time we had somebody who wasn't a white guy running for president, it was Obama, and look at how that turned out. He could have made that point. I don't know why he would even make that point. Why would you try to equate and say, well, it's the dark guy that with the weird last name? It's just a bit weird. To me, that just kind of seemed a little bit. But Vivek, the one thing that Vivek is really smiley. He's like laughing, smiling. In a way, that's good, I suppose. He's just there to have a good time, clearly. And these others are getting very worked up and very upset over Vivek Ramaswamy. What also these GOP people did not understand, one, they're very out of touch, like I mentioned, with their voting base. But secondly, they don't seem to understand what they're doing here. They don't seem to understand that they're not actually running for the nomination. Trump is getting the nomination. That is clear. Even from jail, Trump is getting the nomination. These guys are running for the vice president job or cabinet positions. Vivek Ramaswamy has figured that out. And he has got a firm grip on a cabinet spot at this point if Donald Trump actually wins the White House. But these others like Chris Christie, he's just going to go down in flames, and this is going to be the end. Same thing with Mike Pence. I mean, they're not going anywhere. And maybe they know that. Maybe they also know that, look, if Trump wins, he's never going to put me in the cabinet, so I might as well just go all out and go to blows at this point. I mean, that's possible, I suppose. Now let's get into their foreign policy. This is really how so many of them are very out of touch, very much old guard GOP, holding on, not recognizing that populism has taken hold, that Americans are sick of our own country becoming dilapidated while we give money away to country after country after country. People want this country to be bright, shiny, clean and wonderful and safe and prosperous And yet we're going into ruin. We've got fentanyl crises. We have a homelessness issue. We have people working multiple jobs, unable to live the American dream, unable to buy a home, unable to be a stay-at-home parent. There's all of this going on in this country, and yet we are dishing out money to foreign countries. And this is when they were asked about this, about money to Ukraine. Watch this.
The U.S. has committed nearly $77 billion in aid to the Ukraine war. The administration is now asking Congress for $24 billion more. Regardless of that, the specifics of that plan, is there anyone on stage who would not support the increase of more funding to Ukraine?
We would
not support it.
Europe needs to step up. I mean, I would have Europe step up and do their job.
Mr. Ramaswamy, but you're saying you would not too, Governor DeSantis?
I will have Europe pull their weight. Right now, they're not doing that.
You would not support
and I think we need to do,
me.
and I think our support should be contingent on them doing it. And I would have support in China to be able to take China and do what we need to do with China.
Mr. Ramaswamy, you would not support an increase of funding to Ukraine?
I would not. And I think that this is disastrous, that we are protecting against an invasion across somebody else's border when we should use those same military resources to prevent across the invasion of our own southern border here in the United States of America. We are driving Russia further into China's hands. The Russia-China alliance is the single greatest threat we face. And I find it offensive that we have professional politicians on the stage that will make a pilgrimage to Kyiv, to their Pope, Zelensky, without doing the same thing for people in Maui or the south side of Chicago or Kensington. I think that we have to put the interests of Americans first, secure our own border instead of somebody else's.
Yeah. So you see Vivek there. First of all, he was the only one who raised his hand. Out of all of those GOP, again, not being able to read the temperature in the room, which is what Vivek was doing when he's licking his finger and sticking it up there. It's like measuring the weather, it's like, how are you not gauging the temperature in the room that people are sick of money being sent over to Ukraine, that majority of Americans do not want this. And yet Vivek Ramaswamy was the only one to raise his hand. And then you had kind of this Ron DeSantis sort of, because he's supposed to be the populist. Remember, he's supposed to be the new and improved, better version of Donald Trump, which he's not. He ends up being a big establishment guy. He instead says, well, rather than saying, no, we don't need to be giving more money, we need to be putting money into America, Ron DeSantis' answer is, we just need Europe to do more. And so I'm fine doing it as long as others do it too. That's his answer. Unbelievable. But unbelievable to me but it is believable because these are all GOP old guard. But it is unbelievable that they just cannot read the room. They do not understand that people are sick of this. And every single one of them would continue funding that war because they're a bunch of warmongers. And unfortunately, this shows that the Republican Party is still very deeply the party of war. The Democrats are catching right up there with them. And now Democrats are right there alongside. The war lobby was really able to infiltrate both sides of the aisle. Now, the Republican base is starting to be less and less interested in warmongering, but the politicians have not caught up, and that is what that shows. Let's watch this as Nikki Haley continuing her warmongering. She's the biggest warmonger of them all. Listen to this.
A win for Russia is a win for China. We have to know that. Ukraine is the first line of defense for us. And the problem that Vivek doesn't understand is he wants to hand Ukraine to Russia. He wants to let China eat Taiwan. He wants to go and stop funding Israel. You don't do that to friends. What you do instead is you have the backs of your friends. Ukraine is the front line of defense. Putin has said once Russia takes Ukraine, Poland and the Baltics are next. That's a world war. We're trying to prevent war. Look at what Putin did today. He killed Prigozhin. When I was at the UN, the Russian ambassador suddenly died. This guy is a murderer, and you are choosing a murderer over a pro-American country.
First of all,
Mr. Ramaswamy, you have 30 seconds. Mr. DeSantis,
Nikki, I wish you well in your future career on the boards of Lockheed and Raytheon.
You know, I'm not on the boards of Lockheed and Raytheon. And
Boeing came off of it, but you've been pushing this lie. You've been pushing this lie all week, Nikki.
You want to go and defund Israel? You want to
okay, let me address that. I'm glad you brought that up.
I'm going to
address each of those right now. The false lies of a professional politician. There you have it.
Under your watch,
So the
you will
reality
make America less safe. You have no foreign policy experience, and it shows.
And you know what? The foreign policy experience that you all have shows in the pointless wars we've gotten into. I have to address that. So our relationship with Israel will never be stronger than by the end of my first term. But it's not a client relationship. It is a friendship. And you know what friends do? Friends help each other stand on their own 2 feet. So I will lead Abraham Accords 2.0. I will partner with Israel to make sure Iran never is nuclear armed. But you know what I love about Israel? And I've been there probably in the last 10 years more than most people on this stage. You know what I love about them? I love their border policies. I love their tough on crime policies. I love that they have a national identity and an iron dome to protect their homeland. And so, yes, I want to learn from the friends that we're supporting. And what puzzles me is, I want to learn from those and apply those to protect our homeland, Nikki.
Israel
that is the
needs
answer.
America. America needs Israel.
Okay.
God, I am so sick of the pandering to Israel. What is it that they have over all of our politicians that every single one of them feels like they just have to be waving the flag for Israel over more than they wave the American flag? They seem to fight for Israel more than the United States. What is that about? There needs to be a culture push from we the people to get them to stop this nonsense. That we want them, we demand that our politicians actually care more about the United States of America than any foreign country on earth. It should not be okay. We shouldn't be normalizing this. We shouldn't be continuing to allow it. We've got to somehow put an end to this. This is just, America needs Israel. Israel doesn't need America. America needs Israel, says Nikki Haley. Vivek Ramaswamy is right. Israel doesn't need our money anymore. They're done needing our money. We've given them so much support. They are a wealthy country. They're doing just fine. And they don't really need U.S. aid anymore. If you want to give aid to a country, actually go to the poor ones where the people are not doing well and help them out, help them build, help them get out of poverty, help them so that they can actually be prosperous. But instead, we continue to give money to Israel. And for what? It's really unclear. And what makes it even, it's just very murky. This, is it the lobby? Is it that there's just, are they pandering to a voting base? It's just so, we've got to get to the bottom of that at some point. But there's Nikki Haley claiming that continuing to be warmongers against Russia, helping Ukraine, continue to be warmongers against China. She really brought up China a lot, saying that, oh, so you're just going to let China take Taiwan. Taiwan is China. It's a civil war. We really should stay out of it. That is a domestic issue in China that really just needs to be worked out with them when you look at the history of what's going on with that situation. And yet Nikki Haley would gladly march us into World War III. That is what she's saying. She's claiming that being war adverse is not safe. And what's safe is actually being warmonger and wanting us to go to World War III with Russia and China. I mean, how insane do you have to be? How loony do you need to be to believe that that keeps America safe? That World War III is a good idea. Does anybody actually believe that? Clearly, Nikki Haley does. She was on the board of Boeing. She left the board of Boeing in 2020. She was opposed to them taking any government bailout money from COVID. So she left the board. Vivek, mentioning Lockheed and Raytheon. She's, I'm not on the board of Lockheed and Raytheon. And he's saying, yeah, good luck with your future career being on the board of those companies, which she's clearly wonderfully set out to be on the board of those companies because she's the biggest warmonger of them all. But it just goes to show this. Now, let's go ahead and move on to this clip here. This is when they were asked if they would support Donald Trump if he becomes the GOP nominee.
If former President Trump is convicted in a court of law, would you still support him as your party's choice? Please raise your hand if you would. Just hold on. So just to be clear, Governor Christie, you were kind of late to the game there, but you raised your hand?
No, I'm doing this. Look, I'm doing this.
And I know you didn't.
Whoa. No.
What's the
look, here's the bottom line. Someone's got to stop normalizing this conduct. Okay? Now, whether or not you believe that the criminal charges are right or wrong, the conduct is beneath the office of President of the United States. And you know, this is the great thing about this country. Booing is allowed, but it doesn't change the truth. It doesn't change the truth.
Mr. Ramaswamy, you raised your hand supporting.
I'd like to get in and respond. Let's just speak the truth, okay? President Trump, I believe, was the best president of the 21st century. It's a fact. And Chris Christie, honest to God, your claim that Donald Trump is motivated by vengeance and grievance would be a lot more credible if your entire campaign were not based on vengeance and grievance against one man. And if people at home want to see a bunch of people blindly bashing Donald Trump without an iota of vision for this country, they could just change the channel to MSNBC right now. But I'm not running for president of MSNBC. I am running for president of the United States. We're skating on thin ice, and we cannot set a precedent where the party in power uses police force to indict its political opponents. It is wrong. We have to end the weaponization of justice in this country.
30 seconds, Governor DeSantis.
Look, you know, let me tell you something.
I'm sorry. 30 seconds, Governor Christie.
You make me laugh because
Goes both ways, brother.
you sit here in an answer. You sit here in an answer right.
Hold on one second.
You sit here in an answer.
Go ahead, Governor Christie.
Hold on, Governor Christie.
Hold on.
Well,
so listen.
Okay, so that's very interesting. Again, with the hand raise, Vivek Ramaswamy was the first one to raise his hand. He's like, because again, he knows the game. He knows he's running for vice president or a cabinet position. He's not an idiot. Clearly, the rest of them kind of are. They slowly, you know, you see them, all of them hesitate a bit. Ron DeSantis actually kind of looks around and then he go, oh, okay, I guess I will. I mean, really, really ridiculous. There was a lot of really ridiculous moments in this entire debate. There was Mike Pence at one point when they got onto the topic of abortion. Mike Pence actually said, you know, when he was criticizing some of the others who said it should be left up to the states or that we should come to a common consensus. And Mike Pence was saying, no, that's a consensus is the opposite of leadership, I think is what he said, of being a leader. And I'm thinking, no, what are you talking about? You want to be an authoritarian and tell everybody in the country that they can't, it doesn't matter if they like it or not. It doesn't matter if there's consensus. I'm going to do it my way, says Mike Pence. And he says that's leadership. I'm pretty sure that's just authoritarianism, but it doesn't matter. Mike Pence is not going to win. So I'm not really worried about that guy. Let's just finish up here with this last one. This one I thought was an epic moment. This was, and you know, I'm not a fan of Vivek Ramaswamy. I don't like his policy ideas. Some of them are really way out there. But what I like about Vivek Ramaswamy is the fact that he is just murdering this old guard. The GOP, they're just livid. You could see in their faces how just disgusted they are with this outsider once again coming in with rhetoric that gets the crowd cheering. They hated that about Donald Trump. They hate that about Vivek Ramaswamy. You would think that at this point, they would realize that they no longer represent the GOP base, that they represent the very old guard GOP, the people who wish it could go back to the way that it was, and they don't realize that things have changed. And a lot of other people have recognized that. But it's just the disdain that they have for people like Vivek, for people like Donald Trump, for any outsider. It's really telling. It's really telling about where they're at and where they're not and where they should be, but they're not. So this is an epic. This is the last one I want to show you from this. This is the one that I think is really epic. Here's Vivek.
Listen, now that everybody's gotten their memorized, pre-prepared slogans out of the way, we can actually have a real discussion now. The reality and the fact of the matter is...
Was that one of yours?
Not really, Mike, actually. We're just going to have some fun tonight. And the reality is, you have a bunch of people, professional politicians, super PAC puppets, following slogans handed over to them by their 400-page super PACs last week. The real choice we face in this primary is this. Do you want a super PAC puppet, or do you want a patriot who speaks the truth? Do you want incremental reform, which is what you're hearing about, or do you want revolution?
Okay.
And I stand on the side of the American Revolution.
We're going to take control back here.
I stand on the side of an American revolution. Vivek Ramaswamy, I thought, really killed this debate. I thought he really killed all of these others, and it was just so entertaining to watch. But none of these guys are going to be the nominee. It's going to be Trump unless something terrible happens and, Trump dies or something, and then he can't be the nominee. But barring that, even if he's behind bars, I do expect that he's going to end up being the nominee. And if it's not him, then you know what? Vivek actually has a pretty darn good shot at it, quite honestly. So good for him. Interesting debate. Can't wait for the next. And I never thought I would say that about a presidential debate. I can't wait for the next. All right, guys, let me tell you about Cozy Earth. These are my absolutely favorite sheets of all time. These are the softest, most breathable, temperature regulating sheets, and they are from Cozy Earth. And if you don't agree that you're sleeping cooler, more comfortably this summer, they're going to refund you your purchase price plus shipping, no questions asked. So you have nothing to lose by ordering these sheets and sleeping on them. I was really skeptical at first, like how great can sheets be? And then I got these sheets and they make a huge, huge difference. They are so wonderful. You get 100 nights to try them out. So try them. That is a way better policy than, 30 days, money back guarantee. No, you get 100 nights and you get a full money back guarantee, including your shipping money. So no reason not to try these out. I absolutely love them. Their bedding is made from viscose from bamboo. It traps less heat, enabling people to sleep cooler, more comfortably all year round. I got mine actually when it was colder, and it was wonderful in the cold months, and it's just really wonderful in the hot months. So for a limited time, you can save up to 40% on Cozy Earth. Go to cozyearth.com, enter Iversen at checkout, and save up to 40%. Try them for 100 nights. If you don't sleep cooler, send them back, full refund. cozyearth.com, promo code Iversen.